So lately, Elon Musk and his doogers, Donald Trump, Republicans, among others, are making excuses for these supposed quote unquote audits. I'm frankly getting sick of it. So let's read a passage from the book, The Deficit Myth, Modern Monetary Theory, and the Birth of the People's Economy by Stephanie Kelton, who is also a professor of economics. If you're politically savvy enough, you'll remember that Stephanie Kelton was once Bernie Sanders' economic advisor. So this passage comes out of The Deficit Myth, Chapter 2, Think of Inflation. Stephanie Kelton talks about her experience with being inside the United States Senate Budget Committee with one Senator Mike Enzi from Wyoming. She mentions how Senator Enzi used to be a member of the state Senate in Wyoming, and he was also an entrepreneur. So you can probably figure out where this is going if you know what MMT stands for. Senator Enzi looked at the federal budget as if it was an income statement for his shoe sale business. To him, the problem was obvious. Uncle Sam was operating at a loss. Deficits and debt had become a way of life, and the whole thing was just plain irresponsible. You didn't need an accounting degree like Senator Enzi to see the problem. Time and again, he would simplify the situation by declaring deficits are evidence of overspending. The economist in me wanted to leap from my chair. The chief economist in me was forced to sit quietly and hope that one of the other 21 senators on the committee had a background in economics. As we teach our first-year students, excessive spending manifests as inflation. A deficit is only evidence of overspending if it sparks inflation. Since prices were accelerating, the deficit couldn't possibly be too big. To my great disappointment, none of the other senators challenged Enzi's claim. They were all using the same flawed lens and commenting on the need to match spending with receipts. Republicans saw too much on the expenditure side of the ledger, a spending problem. Democrats saw too little on the income side, a revenue problem. Kitchen table budgeting. What were they missing? 3 big things. So the first big thing that Stephanie Kelton talks about is the stuff I've mentioned before in my other content about how we abandoned the gold standard in 1971 and we've been running on a fiat currency ever since. So we are never constrained about how much money is around. But let's get to the other 2 things that Stephanie Kelton mentions. The government's budget isn't supposed to balance. Our economy is. The budget is just a tool that can be used to add or subtract dollars from the rest of us. A fiscal deficit adds more dollars than it subtracts, while the fiscal surplus subtracts more dollars than it adds. MMT provides the evidence that neither outcome is inherently good or bad. It's a balancing act, and the goal is to allow the government's budget to move in ways that deliver a broadly balanced economy for the people it's meant to serve. Finally, the federal government has historically almost always kept its deficit too small. Yes, too small. Evidence of a deficit that is too small is unemployment. Of course, MMT recognizes that deficits can also be too big, but Senator Enzi had it all wrong. A fiscal deficit isn't evidence of overspending. For evidence of overspending, we must think of inflation. We are not financially on the hook for anything our Congress spends into existence. Essentially, the reason why we're impoverished is not because too much federal income taxes are taken out of our wallets, even though that's partially true. The reason why we're not getting enough income is because our bosses are not paying us a living wage. So anytime a government says we have to spend within our means when they themselves are the currency issuer, that means they're trying to steal money out of our pockets. If you want to know more about modern monetary theory, I would suggest going to these resources up here, or if you want me to read more of The Deficit Myth, follow for more.